What if the most powerful person in the company isn't the one in the corner office, but the one who cleans it? We're taught to believe that billionaires hold all the cards, that their decisions are made in boardrooms far removed from our reality. But what if their biggest secrets aren't hidden in spreadsheets or legal documents, but in the private pages they never intended anyone to see? This isn't a story about corporate espionage or blackmail. This is a true story that turns everything we think we know about power and class completely upside down. It's about a CEO wrestling with an impossible decision that could destroy thousands of lives, and the night cleaner who discovered the one thing that could change everything. The most shocking part? What he found wasn't illegal or scandalous. It was something far more dangerous to the corporate machine. Basic human truth. We promise you a reward that has nothing to do with stock prices or profit margins. The reward is a new way of seeing the invisible people in your own world. The cleaners, the drivers, the service workers, and understanding that they often hold wisdom that can transform entire organizations. Get ready for an emotional story where a simple leather diary becomes the key to saving a community, and where a working-class hero proves that sometimes the quietest voice in the room speaks the loudest truth. The summons came not as a formal email, but through a personal visit from Mr. Vance's stern-faced chief of staff. "Mr. Vance would like to see you." Now, the words were polite, but the tone was ice. As Carlos rode the elevator to the penthouse executive suite, he felt the eyes of the daytime staff on his cleaner's uniform. He was a fish out of water, swimming into the heart of the predator's den. The office was a temple of power, all glass, steel, and breathtaking views of the city. Alistair Vance stood by the window, his back to the door, the worn leather diary resting on the glass desk between them. He turned, and Carlos saw it immediately, the man from the pages. The public mask was gone, replaced by a raw, weary honesty. "Why?" was all Vance asked, his voice low, gesturing to the diary and Carlos's note. This is where most working-class folks would have shrunk back, intimidated by the title, the office, the sheer aura of authority. But Carlos stood his ground. "Because my cousin works at your father's factory," he said, his voice steady. "And I read about the man your father was." It didn't seem right that his dream should end with a memo. In that moment, he wasn't an employee talking to a CEO. He was one man appealing to the conscience of another. What happened next defied every corporate protocol. Instead of firing him or having him escorted out, Vance let out a long, slow breath, the sound of a man releasing a weight he'd carried for years. "No one has spoken to me like that in 20 years, he admitted. He then did something extraordinary. He pulled out the chair opposite his desk and said, "Sit. Please, tell me what you see that I'm missing." The invisible man had not only been seen, he had been asked to lead. The conversation that followed lasted for 2 hours, weaving a new thread into this inspirational tale. But as Carlos shared his perspective from the ground floor, the real fears of the workers, their families, their community, a new problem emerged. The board's vote to close the factory was in just 48 hours. They had a shared purpose now, but the clock was ticking and the corporate machine was already in motion. Word spread through the corporate grapevine like wildfire. The CEO was seen having coffee with a janitor. Not a quick, polite chat, but a real, extended conversation. The whispers started immediately. "Carlos is getting fired. He's a corporate spy." Nobody could comprehend the real-life drama unfolding in the penthouse. But the truth was far more revolutionary than any rumor. Instead of drafting layoff notices, Mr. Vance and Carlos spent the next day holed up with whiteboards and coffee. Carlos, drawing from his years of silent observation, provided something no high-priced consultant ever could: the human truth. He mapped out the real skills of the factory workers, suggested alternative products they could make, and explained how the factory was the central artery of the town's economy. This wasn't a business plan. It was a rescue mission built on immigrant stories of resilience. Now, here's a powerful life lesson about influence. You don't need a fancy title to create change. You just need the courage to speak a truth that others are afraid to voice. Carlos became the bridge, translating the cold, hard numbers of the boardroom into the warm, beating heart of the working-class community. He helped Vance craft a proposal that wasn't about closure, but about transformation, a pivot that honored the past while securing the future. When Vance presented the new plan to the board, He didn't hide Carlos's role. He stood before the skeptical executives and said, "The most valuable insight in this company didn't come from a spreadsheet. It came from the man who cleans our offices at night." The room was stunned into silence. This human drama was challenging the very foundation of their corporate hierarchy, proving that wisdom wears no uniform. The board, driven by numbers and fear, pushed back hard. But Vance, armed with the authentic, ground-level perspective Carlos provided, stood his ground. The vote was scheduled for the next morning, and the fate of the factory and the soul of the company hung in the balance. Carlos had started a ripple, but they were about to find out if it was strong enough to become a wave. The boardroom vote was a tense, grueling affair that stretched for hours. But when the final tally was counted, Vance's new plan, the legacy pivot, had passed by a single vote. The factory wouldn't close, it would be retooled, its workers retrained to build a new line of sustainable products. The decision sent a shockwave through the entire industry, a powerful true story of conscience over convenience. At the factory town celebration a month later, nobody expected the CEO to show up. But there he was, standing on a makeshift stage next to Carlos, who was wearing not his cleaner's uniform, but a simple suit. Vance held up the worn leather diary for all to see. "This book saved your jobs," he announced to the crowd. But it was the courage of the man who returned it that saved our company's soul. Then came the moment that would define this inspirational tale forever. Vance turned to Carlos and made a public offer, a full scholarship for his daughter to any college she chose, and a new, formal role as the company's director of ground-level insight. But Carlos, with the same quiet dignity he'd always carried, shook his head. "The scholarship I accept with all my heart," he said. "But my role is not in your boardrooms. My power is in being the man who sees what others miss." This life lesson in authentic purpose resonated deeper than any corporate title ever could. Carlos continued his work as a cleaner, but now with a profound difference. He had a direct line to the CEO and a mandate to speak truth to power. He became a living bridge, ensuring that the working-class heartbeat would always be felt in the company's highest decisions, transforming the corporate culture from the inside out. The story of the janitor and the CEO became legend, a cornerstone of the company's storytelling. But the real legacy was quieter, seen in the small, daily acts of respect between the suits and the service staff, in the understanding that every person in the ecosystem held a piece of the puzzle. The most valuable discovery wasn't in a diary. It was in the space between two people who chose to see each other, and in doing so, changed everything. What if the most powerful person in the company isn't the one in the corner office, but the one who cleans it? We're taught to believe that billionaires hold all the cards, that their decisions are made in boardrooms far removed from our reality. But what if their biggest secrets aren't hidden in spreadsheets or legal documents, but in the private pages they never intended anyone to see? This isn't a story about corporate espionage or blackmail. This is a true story that turns everything we think we know about power and class completely upside down. It's about a CEO wrestling with an impossible decision that could destroy thousands of lives, and the night cleaner who discovered the one thing that could change everything. The most shocking part? What he found wasn't illegal or scandalous. It was something far more dangerous to the corporate machine. Basic human truth. We promise you a reward that has nothing to do with stock prices or profit margins. The reward is a new way of seeing the invisible people in your own world, the cleaners, the drivers, the service workers, and understanding that they often hold wisdom that can transform entire organizations. Get ready for an emotional story where a simple leather diary becomes the key to saving a community, and where a working-class hero proves that sometimes the quietest voice in the room speaks the loudest truth. So what happens when the masks of corporate power come off and we're left with raw, human vulnerability? This story isn't really about a CEO or his cleaner. It's about the parts of ourselves we hide from the world and the unexpected connections that help us find our way back to what truly matters. The real treasure Carlos discovered wasn't in that leather-bound diary. It was an understanding that no amount of wealth or power can shield us from our fundamental need for purpose and connection. And the greatest gift the CEO received wasn't just a solution to his business dilemma, but the courage to finally honor the man he'd been pretending not to be. Now I want you to think about your own life. Who are the invisible people in your world whose wisdom you might be overlooking? What truths are you hiding behind your own carefully constructed walls? And what might become possible if you had the courage to let someone see the real you, not the polished version, but the authentic human being underneath? If this story resonated with you, we've created a practical guide, the ground level insight, finding wisdom in unexpected places. The link is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. We'd love to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed how you saw someone in authority? When was the last time you felt truly seen by someone others might consider beneath you? What's one invisible perspective you could seek out in your own workplace or community? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If these stories of courage and connection matter to you, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs reminding that their quiet voice matters. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary transformations begin with something as simple as being willing to see the humanity behind the uniform.